Imagine holding the purse strings to, well, millions of dollars in ministry grants, right?
Right.
You're looking out over a landscape of thousands of churches, but then you realize that the biggest threat to your church's survival isn't actually a lack of money.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
Right. It's a lack of connection. Today, we are cracking open the blueprints of a major American church body.
A really deep look under the hood.
Exactly. We are looking at the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, specifically their 2026 convention. And we've got this massive stack of documents coming out of Floor Committee 1.
Which is a heavy stack of reading, by the way.
Oh, for sure. But right out of the gate, we are looking at a radical shift here. I mean, we are talking about taking power and millions in funding out of the corporate towers and pushing it directly into the hands of local pastors and local lay people.
Which is huge.
It is. But the ultimate question we have to answer for you today is, well, will it actually work? Welcome to this deep dive into the source material. I'm so glad you're here with us.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
And to be honest, convention resolutions can sometimes read like, I don't know, municipal zoning codes.
Oh, absolutely. They can be incredibly dry.
Right. But we are going to translate all of that today. Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading these documents, you get hit with this wall of whereases and resolves.
Yeah, the classic church governance language.
Exactly. And it can feel so dry if you don't know what you're looking for.
What's fascinating here is that what we are looking at primarily comes from a document called Today's Business, Issue 1.
Right.
And Floor Committee 1 is titled National Witness. Now, that carries a lot of weight, you know?
Yeah, national witness. It sounds very official.
Right, because when an institution talks about national witness, it implies this highly coordinated collective effort to look outward at the country and say, here's what we believe, and here's how we are reaching you.
But a title is just a title, right?
Exactly. What really matters is the actual machinery built into these proposed resolutions.
Right, the delegate study guides and the overtures that the delegates will actually be debating and voting on.
Yeah, because these are blueprints. They argue for a specific vision of the future.
So, as we go through this deep dive, we're not just going to read you a table of contents.
Oh, please no.
Right. We are going to use a very specific guiding lens to evaluate these documents. We are adopting a concerned but fair mission posture.
Which is crucial when looking at institutional documents.
Yeah, I'd like to call it the kingdom over castle test.
Kingdom over castle. I mean, it is a brilliant metric.
Right. It forces us to ask where the energy and the money and the authority are actually flowing.
Is the institution trying to, build a taller wall around its own castle? Or is it trying to expand the kingdom by actually empowering the people on the ground?
Exactly. So for every single one of the 15 resolutions we look at today, we're going to test it against this framework.
Which means asking some hard questions.
Yeah. Does this resolution help the synod serve local congregations for outward gospel mission? Or, does it flip the script? Does it subtly ask those local congregations to serve the synod's administrative structures?
Are we watering the actual garden? Or are we just paying people to paint the fence?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And to answer that, we have to look completely past the theological rhetoric in the preambles.
Oh, for sure. Because let's be honest, every single resolution sounds perfectly pious on paper.
Right. Nobody writes a resolution saying, hey, let's build a useless bureaucracy.
Exactly. But we are going to evaluate the actual text, the incentives they create, the flow of authority, and the mechanisms for accountability.
We have to separate what the document simply says it wants to do from what the text actually authorizes.
Right. Does a resolution demand high control from the top down, or does it offer low control with high accountability?
Does it hand a local pastor a practical tool or just give him a pat on the back?
Yeah. And before we look at the specific tools, we have to understand exactly who we are reaching right now.
Right, because the demographic reality of North America in 2026 is vastly different than it was, say, 50 years ago.
Completely different.
Which leads us to our first major theme coming out of these documents. It's this recognition that the mission field isn't just a concept of sending someone across an ocean anymore.
No, the mission field is right here.
Yeah, it's your next door neighbor. It's in our cities, speaking dozens of different languages, embedded in historic communities that the church has sometimes engaged with and, sometimes overlooked.
It is a massive demographic reality check.
Yeah.
And you see the church responding to this immediately in Resolution 101.
Right, which is titled To Celebrate and Encourage All Nations Ministry in North America. That's found on pages 57 to 58 of our source text.
Yeah, and in plain terms, this resolution is officially giving thanks for the multilingual and multi-ethnic ministry happening across the Synod.
And it actively encourages congregations to recognize those mission opportunities among diverse populations right in their own backyards.
Exactly. Let's dig into the whereas clause, the rationale that the committee uses to build their case.
Yeah, what is the theological claim here? Because they aren't just saying diversity is good in a corporate HR sense.
Right. The theological claim is entirely rooted in Scripture. They frame this through the Great Commission in Matthew 28.
Right, go and make disciples of all nations.
Yeah, and they tie it directly to the vision of the Church Triumphant in Revelation 7, where every nation, tribe, people, and language is gathered around the throne.
So it is a profoundly outward, mission-focused framing.
It really is. And they back it up by explicitly mentioning historic LCMS milestones for Chinese, Hispanic, Black, and Hmong ministries.
I noticed they also cite concrete examples of existing work. They point to the Lutheran Heritage Foundation, or LHF, which does this incredible translation work.
Yeah, they specifically mention the Himnario Luterano, the Spanish Lutheran hymnal.
So this isn't just abstract theory. They're pointing to actual tools that exist in the field right now.
Yes. And the core assumption this resolution makes is quite charitable, which I appreciate.
How so?
Well, it assumes that local congregations are inherently willing to engage cross-culturally, but that they perhaps need a boost in awareness.
Or maybe they just need a direct connection to the right resources to actually do it effectively.
Right. But the most striking part of the framing is how it explicitly states that the gospel is not tribal property.
Wow. Not tribal property. That is a really powerful, loaded phrase.
It really is.
Especially for a church body like the LCMS, which has these deep historical German immigrant roots.
Right.
Because for a long time, the language and the culture were deeply intertwined. To put it in writing that the gospel is not tribal property, well, that pushes back against any lingering notion of an exclusive cultural enclave.
It does, and it strengthens trust immensely.
Yeah.
By publicly affirming the work of the All Nations Council and various ethnic ministries, it builds real relational trust across different communities within the church.
So it isn't just praising a synodical structure in St. Louis.
Exactly. It is naming a very real, rapidly growing demographic mission field right in North America.
Okay, so the preamble is beautiful. But what about the resolved section? What is the actual action being authorized here? I mean, does it have teeth?
Well, the action is primarily encouragement and direction.
Okay.
It encourages congregations to utilize existing Synod resources. It asks LCMS communications to specifically spotlight cross-cultural witness in their media.
Right.
And it encourages the Office of National Mission, the O&M, to work alongside Concordia Publishing House, CPH, to develop more multilingual materials.
Let me stop you there just to clarify the alphabet soup for you listening.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
CPH is the official publishing arm, right? They produce the books and Sunday school materials.
Yeah.
And the O&M, the Office of National Mission, is the synodical department tasked with domestic outreach and support, right?
Exactly. So the resolution is asking these existing massive entities to collaborate. But notice what is not there.
No new office is being created.
Right. There is no new sweeping mandate coming down from on high demanding that every church must start a Spanish service.
Mm-hmm.
It relies entirely on existing structures.
So it's very low control. But what about the funding? Are they putting actual money behind developing these new multilingual materials?
And that is the vulnerability of this text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, funding for new resources is not explicitly scoped out in the resolution. It asks them to do it, but it doesn't write the check in the text itself.
Right.
However, when we apply our Synod serves churches test, this resolution definitely lands on the side of mostly serves congregations.
Because it points local churches to practical existing tools.
Exactly, like those LHF materials.
Yeah.
And it gives them the theological backing and encouragement to pursue local witness without adding a single ounce of bureaucratic burden or paperwork.
It's an invitation, and the effects on mission and growth seem highly positive here. I mean, it encourages immigrant outreach, and it can inject massive vitality into a congregation that might be located in a changing neighborhood. Instead of moving the church out to the suburbs when the neighborhood demographics change, this resolution says, hey, stay and use these tools to reach your new neighbors.
It is a classic bridge-building resolution. It uses confessional faithfulness, keeping the distinction between law and gospel clear to support gospel witness.
Yeah.
It treats Lutheran identity not as an exclusive cultural boundary to keep people out, but as a deep, rich theological treasure that is meant to be translated and shared in absolutely every language.
Which flows perfectly into the next document in this cluster,
Right.
Resolution 103.
Right.
To give thanks to God for 150 years of Black ministry. This is on pages 59 to 60.
Yes.
And the plain language summary here is that the Synod is celebrating 150 years of LCMS Black ministry. It is formally lamenting past failures in love, and it is supporting the anniversary celebrations coming up in 2027.
When you analyze the text of this resolution, it is actually quite profound.
How
Well, like the previous one, it places Black ministry squarely within the context of the Great Commission. But crucially, the text calls the Synod to actual formal repentance for past failures to meet scriptural standards of love.
Wow.
Yeah, it explicitly names racism in the text.
That is incredibly significant. We don't often see large historic institutions formally leaning into institutional lament in their binding governance documents.
No, we really don't.
Usually it's just a PR statement on a website somewhere. But here it is, printed in the Convention Workbook. If we do the math, 150 years back from 2027 puts us in 1877.
Right.
This is the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. The history there, with figures like Rosa Young and the early mission schools in the South, is incredible, but it was fraught with immense cultural and institutional hurdles.
It was, and institutional repentance is rare because it is deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the resolution makes a massive assumption here. It assumes that the Synod absolutely must honestly and publicly acknowledge its past in order to move forward faithfully into the future. The framing is outward mission-focused, yes, but it requires this necessary inward reflection and repentance first. You cannot build a bridge to the future if you are ignoring the rubble of the past.
I imagine that builds incredible trust. I mean, if we ask, does this strengthen collaboration? Combining Thanksgiving for 150 years of faithful, against-the-odds work with an honest, unvarnished repentance for historical hurdles.
Yeah.
That builds relational trust. It honors a very real historical mission work, but it also acknowledges that Black ministry isn't just history. It is an ongoing, vital mission field today.
Exactly.
So what is the action here? I mean, what are they actually doing?
The Resolve section laments the failures, condemns racism, thanks God for the faithful servants who persevered, and throws synodical support behind the 150th anniversary celebrations.
Okay.
The people affected are Black ministry leaders, local congregations, and really the conscience of the whole Synod.
Sure.
But again, notice the authority and structure. There are no direct governance or funding changes mandated here.
So it's low control.
It's extremely low control. The practical tools provided are not programmatic. They are primarily symbolic and relational. It is meant to unify the church around a shared, honest history.
If we look at the confessional and Lutheran identity effects, this is actually a brilliant use of distinctive theology to build a bridge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it operates perfectly on the Lutheran distinction between law and gospel.
It really does. The law is applied accurately and sharply by repenting of racism and the failure to love neighbors as Scripture commands.
Right.
That is the law, doing its work of exposing sin. And then the gospel is applied by giving thanks for grace, for forgiveness, and for 150 years of faithful ministry that God accomplished despite human failings.
So on the Synod serves churches test.
It mostly serves congregations. It honors a ministry history that belongs to the whole Synod, fostering local relational trust.
It doesn't build a new castle tower.
No, it clears the road between congregations. It is a bridge-building resolution through and through.
That brings us to the third resolution regarding diverse mission fields. Resolution 104, to give thanks for 130 years of deaf ministry. This is found on page 60.
Right.
And the summary is pretty straightforward. It gives thanks for 130 years of deaf ministry and recognizes the highly specialized workers and congregations serving deaf individuals.
What is beautiful about the theological claim here is the expansion of how we typically understand accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, the text emphasizes that the gospel is heard through the preached word, yes, but also through the signed word and through embodied mercy.
That phrase, the signed word, that really elevates sign language, not just as an accommodation, but as a valid, holy vehicle for delivering the gospel.
Exactly. It assumes that deaf ministry isn't just some historical artifact of the church's past.
Right.
It remains a vital, ongoing, and highly specialized need. And the documents cite the president's report to back up this ongoing need.
And it names a mission field that, frankly, is so often overlooked in broader church growth conversations.
Very often.
We talk about reaching different zip codes or different language groups, but we rarely talk about reaching the deaf community as a distinct cross-cultural mission, which it absolutely is.
Right, because deaf culture has its own distinct history and language.
It does.
And this resolution validates the highly specialized, incredibly difficult work of these specific workers, the specialized pastors, the interpreters, and the recognized service organizations, or RSOs.
Let's define RSO for you listening. A recognized service organization is an independent nonprofit group.
Right.
So maybe a camp, a specialized ministry, or a social service agency. And it isn't legally owned by the Synod, but it has been officially vetted and recognized as operating faithfully alongside the church.
Exactly. So the Synod relies heavily on these RSOs to do the specialized groundwork in deaf ministry.
Got it.
Now, the action authorized in the resolution is entirely thanksgiving and encouragement for these workers and congregations.
No new synodical structure created.
None. There is no new central funding. It is low control.
So the theological effect here is reminding the broader church that word and sacrament ministry fundamentally requires accessibility.
Yes.
It's a foundational Lutheran belief that the word actually creates faith, but the word has to be accessible. It has to be signed, taught, or embodied for that to happen.
Which means on our test, it mostly serves congregations. It highlights and encourages support for local, specialized ministries without trying to centralize the control of those ministries in St. Louis.
No, it is pure bridge building.
100%.
Okay, let's take a breath and transition here. Because we've looked at these incredible historic milestones, we've celebrated the diverse mission fields, we are celebrating the past.
Right.
But here's the pivot for Floor Committee 1. We have to build the future.
Right.
So what does this all mean for the local parish right now, today? How is the Synod actively helping struggling churches survive? And how are they helping new churches begin? That brings us to the core mission: planting, revitalizing, and the urban core.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely.
This is where the theology has to turn into logistics.
Right. And I have to push back a little on the whole concept of convention resolutions here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because it is incredibly easy for a room full of delegates to pass a piece of paper that says, hey, everyone, go plant more churches, go revitalize your declining parish, work harder.
Right.
It costs nothing to write that. But where is the actual support? Does the text provide real resources, or is it just passing the buck and the blame to an already exhausted local pastor?
That is the exact right critical lens to use. So let's test that skepticism against Resolution 105 to prioritize revitalization work. This is on pages 60 to 61.
Right.
The plain language summary is that it encourages the Office of National Mission and the individual districts to help plateaued or declining congregations with biblically faithful revitalization practices.
Plateaued or declining, that's a painful reality.
It is.
There are a lot of people listening right now who are sitting in a sanctuary that used to hold 300 people and now it holds 60.
It is a heartbreaking reality across American Christianity right now.
Yeah.
And the whereas analysis shows that the text doesn't hide from this.
Right.
It acknowledges the membership decline openly, but it frames the proposed revitalization not around the latest corporate growth strategies, but around word, sacrament, outreach, and this is a key phrase in the text, caring for inactive members.
Wow. Caring for inactive members, that is a massive distinction.
It really is.
Because in the 1990s and 2000s, the church growth movement told everyone that to revitalize, you needed a fog machine, a coffee shop, and a CEO-style pastor to attract the seekers, right?
Exactly.
But this document is saying, no, revitalization looks like faithfully preaching the word, administering the sacraments, and literally going after the sheep who have wandered away from your own flock.
It assumes that decline can be reversed, or at least mitigated through intentional, faithful pastoral care.
Right.
And I appreciate that it doesn't just condemn local pastors for the decline. It acknowledges the macro reality and tries to offer a lifeline.
Yep.
So it is outward mission-focused regarding the community, but deeply inward and pastoral-focused regarding those inactive members.
So what is the action? Does it actually help the pastor?
The action directs the O&M to work with the districts to provide resources, and it encourages congregations to engage with those resources.
Right.
It relies entirely on collaboration, There are no new mandates. It doesn't force a one-size-fits-all top-down program on a rural church in North Dakota and expect it to work exactly the same as it would in suburban Texas.
Right. Context matters.
Exactly. So it's a low-control environment.
It doesn't have practical tools, because if a church is dying, collaboration just sounds like another committee meeting.
Well, it points to existing O&M and district resources, but you were right, it relies heavily on local implementation. It isn't a magic wand.
Yeah.
The mission and growth effects are targeted directly at congregational vitality and returning the dechurched. Confessionally, it keeps law and gospel clear.
So it actively prevents revitalization from becoming mere corporate restructuring by keeping it rooted in word and sacrament.
Exactly.
So on the kingdom versus castle test, it mostly serves congregations because the explicit goal is to push resources down to the local level to arrest decline.
Right.
It's balanced, it builds bridges to the community and to the inactive members, but it keeps distinctive confessional practices firmly at the center of the revitalization effort.
Now, you asked earlier about putting literal dollars behind the sentiment.
Yes, show me the money.
If you want to see resolution that actually opens the checkbook to solve a problem, look at Resolution 106.
Okay.
To support Lutheran congregations and schools in urban contexts on page 61.
Let's look at it. The summary here. It provides networking, administrative support, and data resources for churches and schools in city environments.
The theological and practical claim here is vital. It recognizes that urban churches have a rich, incredible history. But today, they are facing severe demographic, financial, and operational challenges.
Very true.
And the underlying assumption is that urban ministries need specific, tailored administrative and networking help that suburban or rural models simply do not provide.
Think about an inner-city pastor. They often have a massive, aging, historic building that costs a fortune to heat.
Well, yeah, huge boiler systems.
Right. They have a shrinking local endowment. The neighborhood around them has immense social and mercy needs. That pastor ends up acting as a property manager, a social worker, and a grant writer, and barely has time to write a sermon.
Yes.
The framing here is so important. It treats urban communities as neighbors to love, not as problems to abandon or flee from. I imagine for an inner-city worker, seeing the Synod formally acknowledge their unique, crushing administrative struggles strengthens a lot of trust.
It absolutely does. It directly targets the urban mission field.
Right.
And the resolve section is where your pushback about is this just words on paper gets answered decisively.
Okay.
It directs the O&M to network with districts. It encourages massive data sharing between the Lutheran Church Extension Fund, LCEF, Lutheran Hour Ministries, LHM, Concordia Plan Services, CPS, and the O&M.
Let me jump in on that data sharing. Breaking down those silos is huge.
It is.
Because if a local urban pastor wants to know the demographics of his zip bind, he shouldn't have to call 4 different national agencies.
Exactly. But here is the real kicker. Under the authority and money section, the resolution explicitly notes an estimated $30,000 annually in corporate Synod contract labor just for coordination.
Wait, really? Okay, so there is actual money attached to this.
Yes.
$30,000 annually just to hire contract labor to help coordinate the administrative burden for these urban ministries.
Right.
That means taking the paperwork off the desk of the local pastor so he can go visit the sick.
Yes. It facilitates networking rather than top-down directives. It promises data-informed local planning.
Wow.
The mission impact here could be highly beneficial for urban ministry, for schools, and for mercy work, largely because it attempts to leverage the corporate weight of the Synod to do the heavy lifting for the local church.
So on the Synod Serves Churches test, this is a slam dunk. It strongly serves congregations, it allocates real funds and clear directives to alleviate the administrative burden. It is a massive bridge-building resolution that empowers local initiative supported by macro-level data.
And that momentum, that shift of resources to the local level, carries right into Resolution 107.
Okay, let's look at 107.
To increase church planting at the parish level, pages 61 to 62.
Increase church planting at the parish level. Just that title alone shifts the paradigm.
It really does.
We usually think of church planting as a massive district operation. You buy a $5 million plot of land, you hire a rock star church planter, and you parachute them in.
Right.
But this summary says it encourages local churches to start new preaching stations and church plants, supported by grants and the O&M.
If we unpack the whereas clauses, the theological point anchors everything. Word and sacrament are foundational to any church plant. But then it brings the receipts. It notes that there are currently 33 active plants in the Synod. It notes that $590,000 in grants have already been distributed. And it notes that 64 potential new sites have already been identified.
So they have the data, and they have already started the engine on this.
Exactly. And the core assumption here is fascinating.
What's that?
It assumes that the absolute best engine for church planting isn't a top-down district initiative.
Right.
The best engine is the local parish itself. They call it the preaching station model.
Okay, for you listening, a preaching station isn't a fully chartered independent congregation with a building and a mortgage. It might be a pastor from a mother church going to a rented VFW hall or a living room in the next town over to preach on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
It is agile. It is low cost.
Right. It is fiercely outward mission focused, and it deeply empowers the local pastor and the local congregation to be the tip of the spear in evangelism.
That's great.
The action directs the O&M to set numerical goals, to partner with districts, and to specifically prioritize regions that currently do not have pure gospel teaching.
Let's talk about the money and structure here, because the numbers in the documents are staggering compared to the other resolutions.
Yeah, the resolution leverages over $2 million in anticipated future grants.
$2 million.
Yes. That is a massive shift in focus and resources directly to parish-level initiatives.
Wow.
It represents high accountability because they're literally setting numerical goals for the O&M to hit, saying you must plant this many.
Right.
But low control because they are respecting the local models of how a church is actually planted in a specific context.
I love how it ties directly back to Lutheran identity, specifically Augsburg Confession, Article 7. The whole point of the church is the pure teaching of the gospel and the right administration of the sacraments.
Yes.
Connecting a $2 million church planting initiative directly to AC 7th is, as the committee notes say, putting Lutheran steel in the bones of church growth.
It is the ultimate Synod serves churches resolution. It decentralizes church planting. It literally asks the corporate synod to fund and support the local parish's outward reach. It is the perfect balance. It is bridge building, making new mission starts, and developing evangelists, but it is firmly rooted in distinctive keeping, which is that absolute sacramental clarity.
Okay, so we've covered the diverse mission fields. We've covered the push to revitalize the struggling and plant the new with real grant money. But here is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Once we actually reach people, or if we just want to keep the people we already have in the pews, what exactly are we teaching them? How do we form them?
Because planting a church without a foundation is just gathering a crowd.
Exactly. How do we hold the line in a culture that feels increasingly hostile to historic Christian teaching? This brings us to the third major theme of the documents: forming the faithful through catechesis and apologetics.
This section shifts gears entirely. It deals heavily with doctrine, confession, and the sharp intersection of the church and the modern public square.
Right. And as we look at resolutions 110 and 111, which deal with cultural idolatry and the design of the family, we are looking strictly at the mechanics of what the text argues. These are hot-button, politically charged topics in the real world. And just to be completely clear, we're simply exploring the text's ideas here. We are impartially reporting the contents of these documents. We are not endorsing any viewpoints, left or right.
Right. What's fascinating isn't the politics of it, but the mechanism the church is using to address them. We are analyzing how the text attempts to structure the church's response to culture.
Exactly. We are evaluating the text, the incentives, and the authority flow. And to understand the foundation of that mechanism, we actually have to start with Resolution 102.
Okay.
To proclaim 2029 the 500th year of Luther's catechisms, found on pages 58 to 59.
The summary here is that it prepares the Synod to celebrate the 500th anniversary of the publication of the Small and Large Catechisms in 2029 through a massive initiative called Catechism 500.
The theological claim in the whereas section is that catechesis, which is the systematic teaching of the basic tenets of the faith, is the absolute foundation for evangelism, for discipleship, and for family life.
I love the phrase used in our notes.
Yeah.
It's kitchen table theology.
Yes. It's the 10 Commandments, the Apostles' Creed, the Lord's Prayer. It's the stuff you teach your kids before bed.
Right.
It isn't high academic theology for scholars. It is the daily bread of a Christian family.
Exactly. The document references Concordia Publishing House's existing resources, and it assumes that a synod-wide coordinated anniversary will act as a catalyst to spur local renewal in teaching.
So the framing is inward formation, but it is inward formation for the sake of outward vocation in the world.
Yes, and it unifies the church. Everyone in the LCMS, regardless of where they fall on other issues, loves the small catechism.
Absolutely.
It focuses on the mission field of the home and the pew.
So what does the resolve section actually ask for?
It encourages the President of the Synod to officially establish Catechism 500. It asks for broad participation from CPH, the O&M, the university system, and the local parishes.
Okay.
Now, the authority and money part is a bit vague here.
Really?
Yeah, the financial costs are not fully scoped out in the document, but it creates a new triennial emphasis.
Ah, this is where I have a bit of concern. Does this pass the Synod serves churches test? Because triennial emphases often turn into top-down corporate branding.
It's definitely mixed.
Yeah.
It absolutely could become a top-down branding exercise, what we might call fortifying the castle, selling banners, logos, and coffee mugs that say Catechism 500, which, doesn't actually help a family.
Right. Nobody needs another coffee mug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if it is implemented well, if the initiative actually provides tangible, usable, low-cost catechetical tools directly to congregations, then it serves the local family deeply.
Right.
It has strong, distinctive, driving doctrinal clarity, combined with bridge building by actively equipping parents to teach their kids.
Which perfectly sets up the context for Resolution 110.
Yes.
To confront increased idolatry of our culture with clear confession of love of Christ and Lutheran resources in Christian apologetics. This is on pages 64 to 65.
Looking at the mechanics of the text, the summary is that this resolution encourages the creation of apologetics resources to help Lutherans confess Christ and address various cultural issues.
Apologetics being the intellectual defense of the faith.
Right. But crucially, it frames these modern cultural issues specifically as idolatry against the first commandment.
This is what I meant earlier about the mechanism being fascinating. Whereas analysis shows a very specific theological claim,
It does.
it takes complex modern cultural clashes, things that are usually debated on cable news as political issues, and categorize them strictly as theological First Commandment issues. You shall have no other gods.
Supported by several overtures from the field, the underlying assumption of the text is that the current culture is becoming increasingly hostile to historic Christianity, and therefore the laity needs specific intellectual and theological equipping to withstand that pressure.
Right. And again, impartially looking at the text, the framing is highly defensive regarding the culture, but it is aimed at giving the laity confidence for an outward confession. It acknowledges the very real, palpable pressure that families, students, and pastors feel when they walk out their front doors. It treats the ideology of the culture as a mission field to be engaged with.
Moving to the resolve section, the action encourages the O&M to actually survey forms of cultural idolatry and then promote apologetics resources involving CPH, the seminaries, and Lutheran Hour ministries.
Okay, let's look at the authority and structure here. It directs synodical entities to produce or curate content based on a survey of cultural idolatry. But who gets to define what constitutes idolatry in that survey?
That is the pivotal question regarding accountability and control.
Right.
There is high centralized influence over what is deemed idolatry. The accountability is vague regarding exactly who defines the scope of that survey. Is it a committee? The presidium?
Yeah, that's unclear.
The entire goal is to provide resources and tools to pastors, teachers, and families, but the lens of those resources is decided at the top.
What are the mission and growth effects of something like this?
Well, it deeply impacts public witness, youth retention, and pastoral formation. Analytically speaking, this resolution is a double-edged sword.
How so?
Depending on execution, it could empower an incredibly confident, articulate witness. It could give a college student the exact words they need to explain their faith to a skeptical roommate.
Okay.
Or, if the resources are purely defensive and hostile, it could foster a bunker mentality where the church just talks to itself.
So it uses Lutheran identity as a boundary marker against the culture. If those apologetics tools are used to speak intelligibly and lovingly to neighbors, it strengthens confession for the sake of mission.
Right.
If it's just used to build a taller, thicker wall around the castle, it narrows the mission.
Which is why, on the Synod serves churches test, it is mixed. The stated intent is to serve congregations with tools, but the centralized surveying of what constitutes cultural idolatry leans heavily toward fortifying a synodical institutional stance. It is very strong on distinctive keeping, guarding the doctrine, but has a vulnerability. It may be too inward if the resources don't actively build bridges for evangelism.
That structural analysis applies very similarly to Resolution 111, to confess God's design for the family, found on pages 65 to 66.
Yes, and again, impartially analyzing the mechanism here. The plain language summary of the text is that it confesses a biblical view of the family and encourages public witness against cultural or legal interference with Christian child-rearing.
Looking at the claims, the text addresses parental vocation, schools, and cultural pressure, firmly affirming the family as God's design. It references biblical and confessional definitions of vocation.
Right.
And the core assumption is that parents are currently facing unprecedented external interference in how they raise their children in the faith.
The framing here is distinctively inward and protective of the family unit, but it couples that with a call for a public-facing confession in the public square. It aims to validate the immense struggles of parents. In this document, the family itself is the primary mission field being defended.
What action does the Resolve section actually authorize? Is there a program here?
No, it is primarily a doctrinal and encouragement resolution. It encourages public witness and confessing the biblical family vocation.
I see.
It affects parents, schools, and how the church interacts in the public square. But there is no new bureaucracy, no new funding mandates. It is very low control.
Does it offer practical tools, or is it just rhetorical?
It lacks specific practical tools. It provides mostly rhetorical and theological support. The mission effects relate to family discipleship and giving theological cover to Lutheran schools to operate according to their beliefs.
Right.
It protects needed distinctions regarding vocation and the Lutheran understanding of the table of duties, the scriptural guidelines for how people serve their neighbors in their specific roles as parents, workers, and citizens.
So on our test, it mostly serves congregations because it aims to give theological encouragement and cover to parents and local parish schools.
Yeah.
It is very strong on distinctive keeping. It clarifies the doctrine so the family knows exactly where the church stands.
Exactly. But it brings up the next logical problem.
Right. If we are defending the family, and if we are teaching these kids at the kitchen table with Catechism 500, what happens when they leave the kitchen table?
Yeah, that's the scary part.
What happens when they graduate, go to college, or when they are just scrolling online in their bedrooms? That connection brings us to the fourth major theme of the convention: the next generation, youth, campus, and digital.
This section is entirely about transitions. It deals with the spaces where the church has historically lost people.
Let's start with Resolution 108, to educate young people, pages 62 to 63. Summary. It encourages the vital work of Lutheran schools and educators in passing on the faith.
The theological claim here is simply the essential nature of education in the life of the church. It assumes that Lutheran schools remain a primary and highly effective vehicle for mission.
And schools really are often the front door for the unchurched to interact with a congregation.
Oh, I see.
You might have parents who haven't been to church in 10 years, but they want a good education for their kindergartner. They enroll them in the Lutheran school, and suddenly they are hearing the gospel.
Right. So the framing is outward mission-focused. It commends educators, honoring the school as a literal mission field.
The action is thanksgiving and encouragement for teachers, administrators, and school families.
Yeah. There are no new mandates, no new tools explicitly provided in the text. It has low control and mostly serves congregations by validating local educational ministries.
It is a very balanced resolution. Schools are prime bridge builders to the community while keeping distinctive catechesis inside the classroom.
But the anxiety really spikes when we talk about retention after school, which is addressed in Resolution 109.
Oh, yeah.
To promote ministry among youth and young adults, pages 63 to 64.
The summary of 109 is that it addresses the retention of young people and formally requests study on youth and young adult ministry.
The text openly acknowledges the challenge of retaining successive generations in the faith. It cites several overtures from congregations begging for help.
You're great.
It assumes that current retention rates are a serious problem that requires formal study and brand new strategies.
It is inward-facing regarding retention, but crucial for long-term mission viability. By acknowledging this widespread local anxiety about kids leaving the church, it strengthens trust.
It is addressing a critical demographic mission field.
Okay, I have to push back hard here.
Go for it.
The action is just requesting a study, a committee.
Yeah.
Resolution 109 acknowledges a massive existential crisis in youth retention, and their big swing is to form a committee and request a study. Isn't that just classic institutional stalling?
Well,
How does that help a youth group leader who is dealing with 20 teenagers on a Friday night right now?
that is the exact vulnerability of this resolution. It requests a study to be conducted, which requires funding for a task force or committee. Structurally, this means there is high control over the study process at the synodical level, and the accountability rests entirely on the quality of the eventual report years from now.
There are no immediate tools provided. It just promises future insights. So on the kingdom versus castle test, this is deeply mixed, leaning toward serving the synodical structure.
Yeah.
A study operates at the corporate level. It only serves the local congregation if, 3 years from now, it results in actionable local tools that Friday night youth leader can actually use. Otherwise, it's just another binder on a shelf.
It aims for bridge-building connection and communication with youth, but it remains highly vulnerable to just being vague until the study is complete.
Right.
It also carries a confessional risk. There is a history in the broader church of turning human programs into tests of faithfulness if a study isn't grounded well. But the stated aim is to help congregations confess clearly to their youth.
Now, compare that vague study approach to the very next document, Resolution 1 to 12.
Yes.
To support campus ministry, pages 66 to 67. This one has actual teeth.
It really does. The summary is that it supports LCMSU, which is the official campus ministry network, and it explicitly asks the Synod to reinstate a full-time staff position for campus ministry at the national level.
The whereas claim is that university campuses are major mission fields, and they are absolutely vital for future church worker formation.
Right.
If you want pastors and teachers in 10 years, you need robust campus ministry today. It responds directly to calls from the field, from the actual campus pastors, asking for support.
The resolved action encourages reinstating a full-time O&M campus ministry staff position.
Okay.
And looking at the authority and money, the document explicitly anticipates $200,000 annually for this position, plus travel and incidental costs.
$200,000. That is a hard, measurable commitment to a specific demographic.
It is.
But why does a local campus pastor at a state university need a national coordinator in St. Louis?
Because campus ministry is incredibly transient and highly specialized.
Okay.
A local campus pastor is dealing with a completely new congregation every 4 years.
Oh, that's true. They all graduate.
Exactly. They are dealing with university bureaucracies, secular hostility, and mental health crises. A national coordinator provides a hub.
I see.
They can connect a high school senior in Texas with the campus pastor in Ohio before the kid even unpacks their dorm room. They provide training, resources, and a network.
That makes perfect sense. It is high accountability. We know the exact financial costs and the specific role.
Right.
It uses synodical funds to build a structure that directly supports local, boots-on-the-ground campus chapters. It provides a human resource to help local ministries navigate the complexities of university outreach.
So the mission and growth effects are huge for young adult retention and leadership development. It strongly serves congregations.
Yeah.
It directs significant corporate funding to support the people actually doing the work in the trenches on college campuses. It is a massive bridge-building investment.
And we see that same kind of scalable corporate investment in Resolution 113.
Let's hear it.
To strengthen the Synod's digital witness and congregational connections, on page 67.
The summary here is creating a coordinated digital strategy to connect people searching online directly to local LCMS churches.
The theological and practical claim is undeniable. Many people first seek Christian answers and look for churches online.
Yeah, the internet is the modern Areopagus. The Synod has to meet them there.
They are essentially trying to build a massive digital funnel here.
And the bet they are making, and it's a risky one, is that an institution this large actually has the technical agility to capture someone searching online and route them to a physical church.
Let's talk about how that actually works. Search engine optimization, or SEO.
Right.
Someone is sitting in their apartment at 2 a.m. and they Google, "Why do I feel so hopeless?" Or, "What does the Bible say about anxiety?" The goal of this resolution is that they land on a beautifully produced, theologically sound article or video produced by the Synod.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of that video, there is a mechanism that reads their IP address and says, "There is a pastor 3 miles from you at St. John's Lutheran. Click here to email him." That is the funnel.
The framing is entirely outward mission-focused. It shows a desperate desire to feed prospects to the local church.
Right.
The action encourages O&M and LCMS communications to build this digital witness. It requires digital tools, data management, and likely some unstated software or advertising costs.
But the control and accountability matrix here is fantastic.
It is. It has incredibly low control over the congregations. They just receive the leads in their inbox. But high accountability for the Synod Communications Department. to actually deliver a working, effective technical system.
It creates a digital bridge.
Yes.
It directly targets evangelism to the unchurched and dechurched. It helps congregations speak intelligibly to their neighbors by meeting them in the digital public square.
On our kingdom versus castle test, it strongly serves congregations.
Yeah.
It uses the national scale and the national budget to do digital marketing that a local church of 80 people simply cannot afford to do, with the sole purpose of putting people in those local pews. It is 100% bridge building.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The Synod cannot do all of this. The $2 million in church planting, the digital funnels, the apologetics books, the ethnic ministry translations alone, they rely on partners, and sometimes they just have to clean up the paperwork. This brings us to collaboration and housekeeping.
Resolution 114, to give thanks for Lutheran Hour ministries and encourage enhanced collaboration, pages 67 to 68.
The summary is exactly what it sounds like. Thanks to LHM for their work and a push for more partnership.
The claim here acknowledges that auxiliaries like LHM are absolutely vital for global and national broadcast and digital witness.
Yeah.
The assumption is that collaboration is vastly superior to the duplication of effort. If LHM is already doing mass media evangelism brilliantly, producing radio shows and podcasts and global outreach, the Synod shouldn't waste money trying to build a competing studio.
Right. Outward mission focused. It honors a historic, lay-driven organization, praising a structure that actively reaches the mission field.
The action is thanksgiving and encouragement for collaboration between LHM and the ONM. No new mandates, low control. It synergizes national efforts.
Yeah.
It encourages the sharing of LHM's excellent, practical tools directly with congregations.
It mostly serves congregations. By partnering with LHM, the Synod avoids wasting money reinventing the wheel and provides better resources to the local church. Bridge building at its finest.
And finally, Resolution 115, to respectfully decline overtures, page 68.
Housekeeping. The committee formally declines to act on specific overtures, in this case, Overture 114 regarding school security and local authority.
The claim is simply that the committee felt this overture was better handled locally or in a different venue.
Yeah.
It assumes local authority is better suited for the highly localized issue of school security.
It's inward institutional boundary setting, but in a really good way. It strengthens trust by showing restraint. The committee is essentially saying, we don't need to over-legislate this from the top down. You know how to lock your own doors.
Right. It demonstrates low control by refusing to mandate a synod-wide rule on something that requires local context. It protects the needed distinctions between synodical authority and local congregational or school board authority. It is distinctive keeping through good church order.
Okay, let's zoom out. We have covered the incredible scope of Floor Committee 1. From the historical thanksgiving and institutional repentance for Black ministry to pushing real dollars, millions of dollars, into parish-level church planting.
That's a lot.
We've looked at hiring contract labor for urban administrative support, putting $200K toward a campus ministry rep, and equipping families to confront cultural shifts with apologetics and Catechism 500.
It is a massive portfolio of resources. The sheer volume of tools being authorized here is staggering.
Yeah.
We've seen a push for apologetics, catechesis, digital tools, church planting grants, and administrative networks.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've applied the kingdom over castle test. We've analyzed the flow of money and authority. And by and large, these resolutions are attempting to push resources down to the local level. The Synod is offering an enormous amount of water, fertilizer, and tools for the garden. They are offering resources.
But a resource only works if someone actually picks it up.
Exactly.
If the LCMS passes all 15 of these resolutions perfectly at the convention, if they fund the grants and build the digital funnel, the ultimate question remains completely unanswered by the documents themselves.
Right. Will the local congregation, will the exhausted local pastor, will the local layperson sitting in the pew actually use the freedom and the resources provided by these resolutions to walk across the street and talk to their neighbor?
Yeah.
You can build the most advanced digital funnel in the world. You can print millions of apologetics books. You can authorize a $2 million church planting fund. But someone still has to open their mouth and plant the seed.
The resolutions build the framework. They clear the administrative brush. But the local church has to do the witness.
It's a heavy responsibility, but an incredible opportunity. Something to think about as these documents head to the convention floor. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive into the source material with us. We'll see you next time.